Hey everybody, welcome to Big Red Live. I'm your host Josh, coming to you again with another edition of Big Red Live. Here, joined with my co-host, the amazing Coach Tom Harper. Coach, how are you doing this evening?
I'm amazing. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, Coach. You're nothing but awesome here. Uh,
Thank you.
before before we get started with our show tonight, as always, Big Red Live is sponsored and presented by Burke Heating and Air. Since 2011, Burke Heating and Air has been the trusted source for HVAC repair, maintenance, and installation in Burke County, Caldwell County, Catawba, Lincoln, and Alexander counties. We thank them for the support of local athletics as well as the Big Red Sports Network. Coach, I don't know what to say, but I remember telling you as soon as you come on is I've been jet lagged all week because I've covered 4 games in 5 days over the past 5 days, and we still got football going on for week one right now. As you know, you got Brevard and AC Reynolds playing, and a handful of other teams still playing tonight. But Coach, to set the stage for this week, a lot of games got moved because of weather, and I want to take a view from the coach's viewpoint since you've been in that situation throughout your career. What's it like having a short week or, just being able to having the perspective of playing games earlier in the week versus having to play on a night like tonight with it being Monday night?
Well, number one, you can't control the weather, and unfortunately, I've never. You asked me earlier, have I ever had to move a game up the first week? I've never had to deal with that, but I've had to move a game up because of weather, and it's not the ideal situation that you want. You don't want to have to play a game on a Thursday night, because it's still considered in the middle of the week. And, you want people to come out and watch the game, and that change kind of gets it. And then you want to keep your kids in a schedule that they get used to. It's almost like the back of their hand. They know this is going to happen on Monday, this is going to happen on Tuesday. And when you change a game from a Friday to a Thursday, or a Friday to a Monday, or God forbid, a Friday to a Saturday, it screws with young minds. And that is a tough thing to deal with. So you want to keep them in that routine. And you want it for your fans. You want it for your coaching staff. You want it for the administration, especially first week, because Monday today was the first day of school, and having your having a game move from the Friday to a Monday, it just physically and mentally it screws with kids. So you want to keep it as consistent as you can, but again, you cannot control the weather, and I get it. No lightning. If you got lightning, you can't play. So I get it.
Well, Coach, one thing I'd like to talk about and emphasize is over the past week, we've talked about a bunch of games being moved up, and there were some games that played on days where they moved up, but also weather still impacted those games. For example, Freedom played Patton on a Thursday night, and that game was called in the third quarter. Bunker Hill and Draughn played on Thursday night. That game was also called in the third quarter. And I myself was down at St. Stephen's, and that game ended up entering a lightning delay, and the game didn't resume until around 11:30, and the game didn't end until around almost 12 o'clock at midnight. So, Coach, one thing to talk about is, with these games that do resume after lightning delays, what's it like being a coach trying to keep your kids focused on the task at hand with this game and not get distracted by outside noise?
That's the $64,000 question, because again, I go back to what I said earlier. You're dealing with 15, 16, 17, maybe 18-year-old kids, and for them to go from being excited about playing and being in the middle of playing to all of a sudden it stopped, and you got to sit in that locker room and wait until the weather is done doing whatever it's doing. And now I think it's every time there's a lightning strike, it's another 30 minutes that you have to wait. So, obviously, coaches looking at the St. Stephen's game from this past week, they were willing to wait for hours to finish that game that night. They did not want to come back on a Saturday. They did not want to come back on a Monday. They knew that those kids were not going to be as mentally sharp as they would be coming out after on that Friday night. They want to get it over with. Win, lose, or draw, they want to get it over with. So, you come up with all kind of things to excite the kids, but that Friday night, that's what's getting them excited. Them having to come back and finish a game on a Saturday night or a Saturday afternoon or God forbid, a Monday, it just you're dealing with young kids, and it's going to be very tough.
Well, Coach, one thing I've noticed, I've experienced it firsthand with the differences of a team that you can see from the beginning of a lightning delay to what happens as a result of the lightning delay. And watching that Bandy's and St. Stephen's game, St. Stephen's was leading the game 28-21 when they went to the locker room for that lightning delay. And it just seemed like after that lightning delay, Bandy's was a different team, and they were the guys that went from having the momentum pushed against them to the guys then pushing the momentum back in their favor. So it just seemed like something to just observe that, when you're a coach for these lightning delays, you got to be able to tell the kids to be mentally focused, to keep loose, and all that other stuff. So I thought it was just an interesting thing that you brought that up because, like I said, it's easy to see a team just turn into a completely different team after having to go to the locker room, when they got all the momentum and just how much it can kill momentum.
I think when we were coaching, I know I tried to get the kids to understand that this was the difference between a good team and a not so good team, is being in this kind of position to where it's not ideal, but it's going to be the difference between who's winning the game and who doesn't win the game. And I always hoped that our kids would come out more on fire because of their backs against the wall, unless they're just, sort of like what happened with Patton and Freedom. It was over with at halftime anyway. So you ain't got to get up for anything. You basically just call the game and go home. And that's exactly what happened there. Same thing with Draughn. But this kind of game, it's already competitive. And now we're going to see who is stronger mentally because of the situation you got to deal with.
Well, Coach, that's an interesting insight right there. Tonight, we're going to take a look at some of the scores from Week 2, and we're going to go ahead and move on to that real quick. Our Week 2 scoreboard of the high school football season. We're going to start off with Freedom, with our Week 1 varsity scoreboard. Freedom played Patton on Thursday night. Freedom came out victorious 33-0. West Iredale over East Burke 43-6. Bunker Hill 47-0 over Draughn. Foard defeats West Wilkes 26-13. Bandy's over St. Stephen's 30-28. Cherryville over 41-6 over North Stokes. Wilkes Central 63-0 over North Iredale. North Wilkes over South Stokes 42-14. East Gaston over North Gaston 34-8. Stuart Kramer 42 over Forest View 6. TC Robertson over Huss 48-12. South Point defeats Hickory 34-28. Chase over Polk County 48-24. Crest defeats Burns 28-14. RS Central over McDowell 51-12. Asheville over East Rutherford 53-22. Charlotte Latin over Mitchell 27-18. South Caldwell with a big win over Ben L. Smith 34-12. Lincolnton 30 over Maiden 10. And then you have Alexander Central over Newton Conover 49-28. High Brighton over East Wilkes 34-16. North Lincoln over West Lincoln 7-0. Watauga over Ashe County 55-13. East Lincoln over South Iredell 35-7. Shelby over Kings Mountain in a big Cleveland County rivalry 28-21. Starmount defeats Mount Airy for the first time since 2019 20-16. And then Hampton, Tennessee victorious over Avery County 46-24. Coach, when you take a look at the scoreboard this week, what are your standout scores to you? Does anything pop out on the screen to you?
Well, going down the list, number one, I want to give a shout out to West Iredell. I'm telling you, I believe the coach's name is Sean Fitzgerald, and he has done a really good job of keeping that program moving forward. So I understand they played East Burke, and I know East Burke has got some work to do, but I was impressed with that win. I'm really excited about the Bandy St. Stephen's game because, again, you told me that could have gone either way, and both teams look like they're going to be very competitive this year. Going down the list, I was a little surprised that Crest beat Burns that bad. I thought Burns would be more competitive. Maybe they were. I don't know the particulars of that game, but Crest just keeps rolling like they always do.
Well, to talk about that Crest and Burns game, that game was tied at 14 in the fourth quarter, and Crest got two big takeaways that led to two scores to seal the game. Had a fumble recovery that was returned all the way deep inside Burns territory, and then Burns on the potential game tying drive through a pick six.
So it could have gone the other way very easily, depending on. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. Got to shout out to South Caldwell. I mean, what a huge win for that program because they've been down and they look like they're very competitive now. They had a coaching change and looks like they're going to be a little bit better. I was very surprised with the Lincolnton Maiden score, as well as the Alexander Central Newton Conover score. My question about the Alexander Central Newton Conover score is Alexander Central that much better, or is Newton Conover not that good? I don't know. Remains to be seen. And the biggest change you're going to see is in week 2 for most of these teams. It's going to be interesting to see, how Newton Conover responds to what looks like a butt whooping, so we'll see. It looks like the North Lincoln West Lincoln game was a battle of attrition. I don't know how good those programs are, but they've been good in the past, so it'll be interesting to see. Watauga keeps rolling as they usually do. I don't know who they play non-conference, but the game to pinpoint is the Watauga Freedom game because that's going to be a big one. East Lincoln rolling. Shelby Kings Mountain. You said earlier that Shelby has not beaten Kings Mountain since 2019.
No, that was Star Mountain, Mount
Star
Airy.
Mountain, yeah. But how long those are two powerhouses, Shelby and Kings Mountain. So it looks like it was a battle. I'm happy for Star Mountain. Mount Airy has been on that throne for a long time, and they'll not come off that throne. They'll still battle for it, But it's nice to see Star Mountain back in the competitiveness of it all. And I'd tell you something about Hampton and Avery County, but I know nothing about Hampton, so we'll move on.
Okay, Coach. Well, a couple of talking points here. South Caldwell getting that win over Ben L. Smith. That was Coach Chris Everhart's first win as the head coach at South Caldwell. Chris Everhart was named the head coach at South Caldwell over the summer. after being an assistant there for a long time assistant there as well. Congratulations to the Spartans on a big win. That was a statement win too, because Ben L. Smith was a playoff team last year, and South Caldwell, as I remember correctly, they were right there on the fringe of elimination. I do believe they made the playoffs. I think they played AC Reynolds in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a big win for South Caldwell when it comes to playoff seeding later in the season. And a lot of big tests coming up for these Northwestern teams this week, especially Watauga. Watauga is going to be facing a red-hot TC Roberson team that come off that big win over Hunter Huss. And a lot of people are saying that's going to be the heavyweight matchup that'll tell us who's going to be the kings of the 6A West, because a lot of people are saying it's between TC Roberson and Watauga for that top 6A West spot.
That will be an exciting game. Where are they playing that game? Is that at home?
This game will be at TC Roberson.
Oh, that will be interesting.
And for Hampton, Tennessee, they are the number 6 ranked 1A team in Tennessee. And then finally, some more thoughts on Week 1, Alexander Central and Newton Conover. You talked about Alexander Central and Newton Conover. You're talking about, is Alexander Central that good, or is Newton Conover just falling off? I would just say that, Alexander Central has shown a lot of improvement this year. I'll tell you the story. It was the story of a 4-quarter game. Newton Conover was leading this game against Alexander Central 21-7 after the first quarter, and Alexander Central completely flipped the game on its head, dominating, outscoring the Red Devils 42-7 from the second quarter on. So Alexander Central's got a lot of talent. They got a good running back in Jaquise Parks that can be a game breaker, because on the very first play of the game, Newton Conover sent a blitz and had 3 guys on him, and he just shed off all 3 of them and took it 67 yards to the house to tie the game.
Well, I'm telling you that if they can get back to running the ball and controlling the game, especially the clock, and I've heard that they're much bigger up front than they've been in the past. They'll be a better football team just because they can run the football. I thought Newton Conover going into this year, especially with Coach Wilson's being what I think his second year, I thought he'd be more competitive. So I just am a little surprised with that. But again, like I told you, the biggest improvement you're going to see is Week 2. How do these kids respond to getting their butt whooped? Are you going to stand up and fight for what you believe that you should have, and go to work and get better, or are you going to fold like a child? It remains to be seen. So Week 1 has never been the time for me to get excited. I always loved Week 2, because now you really got to see what those kids were made of at each program. So it'll be interesting.
Well, at the end of the day, Coach, when you look at it, when it comes to postseason success, now with this new format and how the playoffs are run, you could be a team that wins 3 or 4 games, make a playoff appearance, and make a deep run in the playoffs. It was very evident last year, and I think I don't remember what specific bracket it was, but there was a team that won 3 games last year and made a run all the way to the regional finals in one of the brackets.
You know what? You're exactly right. You never know what will happen at that time of the year. And again, as long as you're working to get better each week, don't let those wins or losses define you. If you can get into the playoffs with 3 or 4 wins and believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing, something good can happen.
Now we're going to take a look and move forward to Week 2 of the high school football schedule. This will be presented by Burke Heating and Air. Special thanks to them for, once again, sponsoring and supporting local athletics as well as the Big Red Sports Network. Coach, there's a lot of really solid games on the slate this week, And there's going to be a lot of intertwining conference games this week, as you're going to see different conferences playing each other this week, especially with the Western Piedmont and the Western Foothills Conference kind of crossing over a little bit, having a lot of teams play each other. We're going to start with the Western Piedmont first, and you got Albemarle visiting Chase. You got Christ School at East Rutherford, Avery County at Patton, Fred T. Foard at East Burke, Draughn at Freedom, High Brighton at South Caldwell, and RS Central at North Henderson. In the Western Foothills 4A, 5A, you have St. Stephen's playing Bunker Hill, Polk County at Newton Conover, Fred T. Foard at East Burke, Hickory at Alexander Central, Maiden at AC Reynolds, North Lincoln at Lincolnton, East Lincoln at Providence, and West Iredell at North Iredell. And for the record, Bandy's will be idle this week. I believe it's their bye week. Their next game will be next Friday, as they will play Kings Mountain next week. And that will probably be a good game, because last year Bandy's played Kings Mountain pretty close. As we move on to the Northwestern 6A, 7A, you'll have Hickory at Alexander Central, Draughn at Freedom, Mitchell at McDowell, High Brighton at South Caldwell, St. Stephen's at Bunker Hill, and Watauga at T.C. Roberson. In the Mountain Valley 2A, 3A, 4A, you have Surrey Central at North Wilkes, West Wilkes at North Surrey, Wilkes Central at McMichael, East Wilkes at Mount Airy, Elkin at North Stokes, Starmount at East Surrey, and then Allegheny at Grayson County, Virginia. And then finally, wrapping up our conferences, you got Southern Piedmont 2A, 3A, 4A. You got Bradford Prep and Bradford Pep. My fault there. Bradford Prep at Highland Tech, Lincoln Charter at West Lincoln, North Lincoln at Lincolnton, Forest View at East Gaston. I can't help but laugh at myself, Coach.
Hey, I've always told you Bradford Pep is really good.
Yeah. Got Cherville at Owen, Bessemer City at Huss, Shelby at Crest, Burns at Kings Mountain. Coach, when you look at this slate of games, do you have anything that stands out to you? Obviously, everybody in Cleveland County is.
Let's start back up top where we were.
All righty.
Okay, you were saying, I interrupted you. I apologize.
I said, when you look at this week's slate of games, what games stand out to you? And everybody knows that the elephant in the room is obviously going to be Shelby Crest, because that is always the game that gets hyped up every single year.
I'm
it is the matchup in the state. All righty.
Okay. The biggest, looking at the Western Piedmont 3A, 4A, to me, the biggest game and the one that has most to prove is High Brighton, South Caldwell. If South Caldwell really is that much improved, here's their chance. Now, as I told you earlier, High Brighton, I've been told, is loaded and could be very good, like a state championship football team again. Here's South Caldwell's chance. The other games, don't really excite me as much as that one. Looking at the Western Foothills 4A, 5A,
I think Maiden and AC Reynolds is definitely one to look at.
Maiden AC Reynolds is going to be a very good one. The Hickory Alexander, now again, same theory. If Alexander Central is returned to favor, here's their chance. But they're catching Hickory at a bad time, because I know teams that are coached by Joe Glass aren't going to get, they're not going to let that loss affect them. So it's going to be interesting. Is that game at Alexander Central? Yes, it is. Maiden AC Reynolds. I don't know how good AC Reynolds is, but they're always competitive. They're always a good football team. They're a very tough, physical football team. I think the one that may be interesting, I don't know much about, is the Providence East Lincoln game. I'd like for Providence to be a competitive team, because I think East Lincoln needs that. West Iredale's going to kill North Iredale. Poor North Iredale. They just can't win for losing. But we'll see. Bunker Hill played a pretty good game last week. It'll be interesting to see if St. Stephen's and Bunker Hill can be competitive.
I think that Bunker Hill and St. Stephen's game will definitely tell us how far Bunker Hill has come in the improvement stage.
Amen.
Obviously, Bunker Hill had a lot of injuries last year. You got a lot of guys returning from a youthful roster, and Bunker Hill's got a lot of excitement down there in Claremont. I think Bunker Hill has a good opportunity here to make a statement. And even if they don't win this game, just being competitive and being neck and neck with St. Stephen's, who St. Stephen's shows to be a team that can be competing for that Northwestern 6A, 7A title. Even a competitive game for Bunker Hill is a big sign of improvement.
Amen. And it'll be, I don't know how good is Polk County.
I'm not really sure about Polk County because Polk County's just been one of them teams that's kind of hard to gauge because, to me, they kind of come off as like a roller coaster. One year they exceed expectations, and the next, when you have kind of higher expectations of them, they kind of fall off a little bit.
Ain't a lot of consistency. I'm really interested to see how Newton Conover responds to getting beat pretty bad. I'm interested to see if Fred T. Foard is for real. They're catching a team that's down right now with a new head coach. Shout out to Jonathan Winkler. He's going to do a heck of a job, but it's going to take time. And he's just started, But I'm glad to see Fred T. Foard being more competitive. Spent 4 years of my life there, and it's a great place.
One thing I'd like to mention about Fred T. Foard is, they mentioned about how Foard loves to run the football, but they don't talk about Ford's versatility this year. Foard is underratedly versatile this year with their ability to pass football. And I saw that at the Burke Jamboree, and that was evident in that the West Wilkes game that they were throwing the football and doing it effectively. So, it seems like Fred T. Ford's having a more dynamic offense this year. And I think if you're a Tigers fan, there's a lot to be excited for if you're a Fred T. Foard fan.
Well, I think with your talk, with what you just said, in order to be successful to Fred T. Foard, you got to be able to run the ball when you want to and throw the ball when you want to, not when you need to. And if they've become that much more dynamic that they can throw the ball because they are in a situation where they want to throw it, not need to throw it, then they become that much more competitive. If you're going to win high school football games, in my opinion, you have to have a very good running game. And you got to learn to control the football. And sounds like Coach Ramser has done a better job of getting that done.
All right, Coach, moving on to the Northwestern 6A, 7A. We've already touched a little bit on Hickory and Alexander Central. We touched a little bit High Brighton, South Caldwell, and St. Stephen's and Bunker Hill. But the game that would probably tell us a lot about this conference would be the Watauga and T.C. Roberson game. One thing what I did over the summer is I got to talk to Coach Ryan Hobbich up there at Watauga, and the one thing he talked about is how this Watauga team is a completely different team from last year, where they graduated 21 seniors, and a lot of them were impactful starters. And although they come off a 55-13 win against Ashe County, Ashe County hasn't beat Watauga since 2014. So the question here this week will be, how legitimate is Watauga going to be this year? And I think no other game will be more telling of how good this Watauga game will be, this Watauga team will be, than this game this Friday at T.C. Roberson.
I think the thing that needs to be talked about when it comes to Watauga is the incredible job that Coach Hobbich has done building a program that probably 15, 20 years ago was the doormat of whatever conference they were in. I mean, they were terrible. I can remember when having to schedule homecoming games, everybody wanted Watauga. And now look at them. State champions. if I know Coach Hobbick well enough, that team he's got right now will be competitive to the point that they'll vie to play for another state championship this year, in my opinion. He's just done a great job of building in the just community. The community loves him, and they love being supportive of him. And he's got the ideal situation because in Boone, there's only one high school. So I think that it's going to be interesting. You're right. Watauga TC Robertson is going to be a very big game. But whoever loses this game has to make sure their kids know that this is not the season. We've got 8 more ball games. So let it be a great game, but not worry about where we are in the conference right now, because it's not a conference game, is it? It's non-conference. So
yeah, non-conference.
Are we on the Mountain Valley?
Yeah. Take a look at the Mountain Valley. A couple games that kind of stand out to me. Starmount, East Surrey. Starmount obviously coming off that huge win against Mount Airy. And then Mount Airy looking to bounce back this week against East Wilkes. And East Wilkes, despite being outmanned and outgunned against High Brighton, they put up a very valiant effort against the High Brighton Panthers. They were very competitive with High Brighton for 3 quarters, till High Brighton pulled away in the 4th.
If I'm correct, which one of those Wilkes teams did Coach Adkins start at? Was it East Wilkes?
Yes, East Wilkes.
So I had the unique fortune of being able to see him when he was coaching that group, and that community is a very proud community, and they played a very good football team at High Brighton. They'll respond. But have we ever seen Mount Airy go 0-2?
Not from my recollection of doing this podcast.
I've never heard of it. So it'll be, again, we're going to see how Mount Airy is going to respond to, a loss that they haven't had in a long time. So, interesting. A lot of interesting games.
Now we head over to the Southern
Piedmont
2-3.
We're back to Bradford Pep.
Yeah, back to Bradford Pep.
What a good football dude. They're very peppy.
Yeah, absolutely. Got me pepped up for football.
I'm not going any more with this.
Yeah. Too many puns there. But obviously, when you look at this week's schedule for the Southern Piedmont Conference, the 2 games that obviously stick out like a sore thumb in this conference, the Cleveland County teams playing each other. Shelby Crest, probably one of the biggest rivalries in the state of North Carolina, and then you got Burns and Kings Mountain.
I've always wished that the surrounding schools like Burke County, Catawba County, I wished that they could become like a Cleveland County. You have a great game every week when it comes to those teams. I mean, Shelby Crest is probably, one of the biggest in the state. And so is Burns and Kings Mountain. So anytime you have that kind of excitement week in and week out at your high school, you're going to have people coming to watch. And Cleveland County is well respected for great high school football. That and the most important thing, which is great barbecue. Would you agree?
Well, it's like you always said, Coach. A coach has a good barbecue place wherever he goes.
Oh my gosh. And Tim McMahon would disagree with me, I think, but Bridges on 74, the best barbecue and the best hush puppies. Now I don't know much about Bradford Pep. Maybe they've got a good barbecue place there. I don't know.
Well, maybe you can go check it out sometime, Coach.
Do we know anything about Lincoln Charter, their football team?
I don't know specifically much about them. I know that last year they played West Lincoln, and they lost that game in a shootout. The score was like 72-43.
I do know that Mike Bias is there, so they've got a really good state championship football coach. And a good friend of mine just took the AD job there. I don't know if you remember a guy named Rob Bliss, but he's the AD there now, and he used to be the head basketball coach at East Burke, North Henderson, some different places, and was the head coach at Fred T. Foard for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see because West Lincoln's down. Am I correct?
Well, the thing is, we don't know much about West Lincoln at all because North Lincoln. We think that North Lincoln's improved, but then you see that 7-0 game, and you have no idea what happened between those two teams. Maybe it just could have been a very sloppy Week 1 game between those two teams.
Yeah, there's not really any other. Stuart Kramer, it looks like they're going to end up being the strongest team from that conference, are they not? Other than Lincoln.
Lincoln's probably the favorite to win the conference. You can't ever count out Shelby because Shelby, last year they hit a groove and then they went on the road. They shut out Lincoln in the regional championship, and then they won the state championship, putting up a record number of points. So you can't ever count out Shelby in that conference. And then you also got Crest in that Crest to worry about, but I don't think Crest is in this conference because Crest is 5A.
So I'm trying to figure out. Oh, there they are. Wait a minute. So Bessemer City is in the same conference as Lincoln and Shelby. Ooh, and Burns. Wow. So you're playing for fourth automatically. Jeez. I'm sure West Lincoln's excited about being in the Southern Piedmont as well. Well, you got Lincoln, Shelby, Stuart Kramer, Burns. I mean, you've got 4 teams, and you're playing for fifth. Jeez, what a conference!
Yeah, a lot of interesting games there for East for the schedule this week. Got a breaking news thing coming in from earlier today that McDowell High School is also going to be allowing high school students free admission to home athletic events this season, now making it the second area team to do so behind Freedom High School. Coach, I'm not sure if you've heard about this situation coming on, but as a head coach, you can obviously vouch that student sections can change the game just by the atmosphere alone. And how much of an impact do you see teams allowing students in for free having on the home team?
Well, I don't know who did it for Burke County or McDowell, but I applaud them. I think it is one of the best things you can do for your community to say to your kids at the local high school, you do not have to worry about having to pay for a ticket. You're in for free. And everybody knows that a home field advantage is having those students there enjoying the game, having a good time, but also cheering for the team. And anytime you can win that battle, it makes a difference to those kids on that football field. It really does. I think that people need to understand that makes a huge difference. And then a really good band makes a huge difference at a home football game and an away game as well, but ticket prices, I can remember being AD at Alexander Central and fighting to stay at $5. And I've heard now that they've gone to $10. So it's doubled in 10 years. And I just don't with the problem that we all have right now with affordability, and everything going up, it's hard to substantiate taking a family of 2 or 3 and spending $50 just on tickets. I mean, it's absurd. And so I'm happy to hear that both Freedom and McDowell have said, we're going to take care of this for our students and to show them how special they are to us. My question is, how do you figure out how much? I mean, I'm assuming that Freedom went out and found somebody to pay for all these tickets. Is that what you know?
I have no idea how they calculate that stuff, to be quite honest with you. But I can tell you this, whatever money they would probably lose on gates, they would probably more than likely make it back off concession sales.
I would hope so. And I think that's part of the reason why they're doing it, is because they know they're going to make it back on the other end. But I just think it's important to show that support to families by saying, look, we're going to take care of your kids are in our high school. We're going to take care of you. So I can appreciate that.
Absolutely, Coach. One thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up tonight, and it's something that it's been brought to my attention a couple times over the past couple years, is when you talk about Freedom football specifically, and having to play teams like Patton, East Burke, and Draughn. A lot of people have told us their thoughts on it and told us about the problems that could be issued for Freedom playing Patton, Draughn, and East Burke. Specifically, just the aspects of RPI and how much it affects it. Especially given how nowadays when you look at the postseason brackets and everything is more weighed heavily on RPI. And Coach, I wanted to kind of dip into your thoughts on this and see what you think about Freedom playing these county teams. Does it really help their RPI, or does it hurt their RPI when it comes to postseason play?
Personally, I think it's going to end up hurting them, mainly because there's not much competitiveness there. There's such a disparity or discrepancy between the program and where it is at Freedom versus the program and where it is at Patton and Draughn and even East Burke. But I see both sides. I understand why the Burke County administration is saying, let's all play each other, because it builds some community. But is it really building community? Because there's such a different range between where Patton's program is versus where Freedom's program is. And I'm not sure if it's doing either one of them justice, because there's just not that you're not looking at the same player development, so if my kid is playing at a Patton or a Draughn, my biggest fear is going to be, is he going to get hurt in this game? Now, you can say they can get hurt in any game. Yes, they can. I understand that. But it's a whole lot different when you're playing with the kind of people Freedom is versus whoever they're playing this week. I applaud to Freedom. Freedom has JK's done a hell of a job of building that program up, and he's got the numbers back up to where they're very competitive and very strong, and they've made a push to get that way. It doesn't mean that the other teams haven't. It's just they're not at the same spot program wise And I think Freedom would be better served playing teams that they're going to see in a playoff situation.
Well, I kind of agree. I totally agree with that, Coach. And to add into this kind of situation, you gotta have to compare the situations between what's going on with the other Burke County schools versus what's going on specifically at Freedom High School. And when you look at teams like Patton and Draughn, those two programs are in a rebuilding phase where they're playing a lot younger kids than what Freedom has.
That's
And
right.
when you talk about the injury aspect, that's when it comes into play. When you have younger kids playing against kids that are juniors and seniors, that presents a lot of problems because those kids are a lot more advanced when it comes to the weight room being a lot stronger, and that can present a lot of issues when it comes to the injury part.
I don't disagree. You're exactly right. But
Yeah, and then you also kind of factor in too that with the numbers that Draughn and Patton have, you got kids that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors playing both ways too, compared to Freedom being able to do platoon swaps.
well, that was my next statement is that Freedom has gotten to the point now where they're being able to play two platoon with a lot of their team. And so they're going to be that much better in the second and the fourth quarter because they're not as physically torn down like those teams that they're playing that play both ways. You're exactly right. And there's nothing more important to the health of a young child than to be fresh. And if you're not fresh, bad things end up happening. And that's my worry for where Patton and Draughn are, and even East Burke. They're dealing with a brand new head coach. So I think the biggest job that a head coach has to do when they become a new coach at a new program is to begin recruiting in the school immediately. You've got to get numbers out. You got to get kids out and figure out a way to help them feel good about being out there. You got to get those crossover kids that are basketball players and baseball players. And Freedom's done a good job of that. They've got kids out that they probably have not had out in a long time. So success helps that. Would we be having this same conversation if Patton and Draughn and East Burke were competitive football teams like the Cleveland County schools? Would we be having this discussion? I doubt it. But that's where we are right now. So I get both sides. I understand where both sides lie. I just don't want to ever put our kids in a position to where they may get hurt.
Well, Coach, I mean, we talk about county rivalries, and a lot of people say that, when it comes to county rivalries, the gate is naturally going to be bigger for those specific rivalry games. Now, on the flip side, given that it's been kind of lopsided lately with Freedom in the county teams lately, do you think it'd be more beneficial that Freedom plays a team like High Brighton? Do you think that could generate just as much gate as a regular county game could, or even more?
I would not be concerned about gate with that thought, and I would much rather play a team that is much more competitive because of one, the way they look at games now for playoff purposes. I think you are helping yourself more by playing a team that is much more competitive than you are playing a team, regardless of whether they're in your county or not in your county. You know, but I see, well, whoever's making those decisions, I see why they're making those decisions. So I see both sides. I really do. My biggest concern for a Freedom Patton game or a Freedom Draughn game is I would have a lot of discussions with the opposing head coach to say, hey, take it easy on us. We're not as good as you are. We don't want to get hurt. You know, I would be having those kind of discussions with them because uh, the discrepancy is just too much to me.
Well, I appreciate your insight on that, Coach, and that's very insightful coming from a coach that's been in that position, having coached both ends. You know, having to be at a rebuilding stage, and then a coach that's coached a very good team. Because I'm pretty sure you've had to be on both ends of the story.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have, and I understand being coaching a team that is that much better. You have a responsibility to the team that you're playing to make sure that they come out feeling good about the game as well. That's a responsibility that you have. It's not for you to take advantage of at that time. And we used to play, if we had this kind of situation, we would play our second team probably at the second period. And it may look closer than it really was, but let's see, it's a different because now, even first game, your first teamers need to play. They're looking to try to get some experience as well. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of deal. And again, these decisions are made by people that make a whole lot more money than I used to. So all I did was say yes, sir, and move on.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate that little insight there, and just an interesting topic to talk about. There's a lot of different topics to talk about, but speaking of different topics going on right now with the Big Red Sports Network, we currently are doing our Team of the Week poll right now. Our Team of the Week poll is still live for a short time. I'm not sure when it's going to expire. I think it's going to be either tomorrow evening or the following evening, but we have posted that on the Facebook page, so if you haven't already, go vote for your favorite team. Go share it around. Make sure to show some community support for the teams, or if your team's out there as well, just show some community support for them as well. Some other things going on this week at Big Red. The Pick and Poll Challenge is posted for this upcoming week. We have that pinned to the top of the page, as well as the Scoreboard Challenge. Our winners this past week were Danny Carr, Blake McEllier, and who was the scoreboard? The scoreboard winner was Chad Mullis. So congratulations to those three for winning this past week on the
I can't wait for another tie this year so we can see that thing going round and round.
Well, we would have done that tonight, but we had a little mistake here. A mistake on our end caused that to not happen with the spinning wheel. So we'll have to probably wait for another week for Coach Harper to be entertained by the spinning wheel.
Doesn't take much.
But anyways, that's all we got this week for you on Big Red Live. We appreciate you for tuning in this week. And for one last thing before we go, the Team of the Week sponsor for the Team of the Week award is Detail Dynamics. We appreciate them for sponsoring the Team of the Week award. And before we go, one last thing, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Once again, we'll list them off: Blue 42, Countryside Barbecue, B52s, and I'm trying to get everybody. It takes a while to get everything. The Electric Claw Arcade, and Burke Heating and Air and Detailed Dynamics for being our sponsors and supporting local athletics as well as the Big Red Sports.
I want to say one thing before you sign off.
Absolutely, Coach. What is it?
I also want to let people know how hard you and your dad and your mom work for this to work. I mean, you all have really done a heck of a job of working your butts off to make sure that this is a class deal. And I just hope people understand the sacrifices that you all make for this thing to really be first class. So I feel like I'm tooting your horn, and I am. I want people to understand that, you said earlier you had 4 games in 2 days or something like that. I mean, that does not come easy. So, and everything, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything that's printed up, is that done by your daddy?
Well, this week I kind of did it on my own. I've been kind of helping my dad experiment around with AI lately, and he's
Oh,
been absolutely blown away with the things he's been able to discover with
have
it.
you helped him with Chat GPT?
Yeah, but I usually do my stuff using Claude though, so
I have
we
not tried Claude yet. I'm going to have to check out Claude, but I tell you right now, I'm addicted to Chat GPT. He and I are buddies. But I just want to applaud you. You've done a heck of a job, and the website is growing. People are more interested in it, and it's because of what you all have done.
Well, we thank you, Coach, and as always, we thank the people that help us out on the platform, as well as Coach Harper. No other polarizing figure than Coach Harper here on Big Red Live. He's the absolute amazing. he's our amazing co-host here, and not only that, he likes to give me a hard time when I mess up. Like for example, I say Bradford Pep.
I was gonna say anything about Bradford Pep again, but you did, so we'll run with it.
Well, part of the art is being able to make fun of yourself even when you make a mistake.
That's exactly right. Good for you.
Absolutely.
That's a peppy kind of view right there. I like it.
But outside of that, I call him our amazing co-host. My dad calls him a football god. So there we go.
Gosh. I got to get off here before I start believing all this.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in to Big Red Live this week. As always, if you're not following the Big Red Sports Network, make sure to drop us a follow. Coach Harper, take it out for us this week.
Look forward to week 2. It's going to be an interesting one. A lot of good games. Go out and support your local schools and support those guys that go out there and battle on the field because they are deserving of it. Thank you.